they had shared, which is basically which I'm going to show you in the coming slides. I would also like to thank Environmental Resources Management, which has been instrumental in helping me reach out to wider community outside my work and basically encouraging me with the kind of sharing that we have been doing and the kind of work that we have been doing. Now, when we talk about the climate crisis and when we think about today, which is 2nd of October, Gandhi Jayanti, one of the first aspects that come to my mind is that Mahatma Gandhi himself was a great advocate of improving the water, sanitation and hygiene structure in India. Almost 100 years back, he had noticed, the issues in our country when it comes to water, sanitation and hygiene. And I'm quite aware that had he been alive at this point of time, he would have been one of the fiercest advocates of bringing a change to mitigate the climate crisis. He would have been definitely standing along with the Greta Thunberg and other climate crisis advocates on this planet. Now, the term climate in itself is a very broad term because we use it very loosely in our language. So whenever there is a high rainfall event, or there is a storm, there is a dust storm, there is a flood, anything that happens, we kind of say, oh, there is a climate change happening. But there is also another term called weather, and we use it again also quite loosely, that the weather is changing. Now see, we had summers, now we are going into the winters, and so on and so forth. So basically, weather and climate change are not interchangeable. When we talk about weather is a short-term event. It's something that happens, say, in the next 15 minutes. I can say that we see a cloudy sky right now, or I can say winters are approaching. So that is weather. It is basically any kind of a short-term understanding on the atmospheric conditions. However, climate change or climate, the term itself is vast. The classical period for defining climate change is 30 years. That means we have to see certain level of changes at least over a period of 30 years or more. And that defines as something which is climate change. So the screenshot on the right will show you, how weather and climate vary. Weather is more like, a general prediction that today is Friday and this is the weather today, and we are expecting certain weather on Saturday and certain weather on Sunday. But when we look at the long-term data, averaged over 30 years or more, then we say climate change. So when climate change. So when we say climate change, it means something has changed over a large period of time. What do we have in our hand? What is the data that tells us about, there is something happening, something changing around us, and this is the data that most scientists are able to do. This is basically the anomalies in global surface temperature in comparison to the average temperature. So if we look at the temperature from 1880 till 2019 and take an average of the entire temperature, so then we get an average temperature. And when we say the term anomaly, we actually mean that in terms of the average temperature, how good we are doing. That can be how bad we are doing. That can be how good we are doing or how bad we are doing. So this particular plot shows that on the left side, or more from a representation standpoint, on the left side you will see the blue bars, which are basically deviations from the average temperature, and that those deviations are in the negative direction. That means decrease in temperature compared to the average temperature. While as we move slowly beyond 1930s, we see these red spots or the red bars, which are indicative of basically increase in the anomalies or increase in the temperature beyond the average temperature. So these are basically, and these anomalies as we see as we move forward beyond 1980s, these have become so consistent and the peaks are increasing. So we have basically data in hand which shows that something around us is changing. And the first change is the average temperature. And the most important bit of information is that we might be staring at the hottest year that the planet has witnessed since the temperature records are available. Now, some of the most hottest years that have been recorded so far have happened beyond the year 2001. So if you see from left to right, the intensity of the hottest years has been decreasing, and there is a general trend that we see that every year that we are going into is somehow coming up in the top 5 of the hottest years. So, and these years are all placed beyond 2011, beyond 2001, except the year 1998, which was also one of the hottest years. And these are our hottest years so far. So what else do we have with us in terms of data? We have records of events which are climatological, which are hydrological, or which are meteorological. Now when I use these words, this mainly relates to basically how are natural hazards around us changing, because climate change has a direct relationship with how many droughts that we are witnessing now, or how many wildfires that we are witnessing now, or how many cyclones that we have been witnessing, or the floods, or any kind of extreme climate event. And this is a general trend. The general trend is between the year 1980 till 2014, all these events are increasing. And since our focus is more on the hydrological aspect or on the water related aspect, which the aspect that brings most alarm to our ears is the 5-fold increase in the hydrological events like floods, or the 3-fold increase in the climatological events like extreme temperature, droughts, forest fires. And among these, droughts and floods are the key events which are related to availability of water. Now, we have a certain idea now on the data related to atmospheric conditions, temperatures, and the extreme events. But another aspect of the record is basically what are we throwing into the atmosphere that is giving us strange reactions, and that is called as the pollution from the greenhouse gases. Now, every 24 hours we are spewing around 152 million tons of these gases into the atmosphere and making it like a gas chamber. And these gases are emitted through a variety of sources that includes basically oil production, mining of coal, agriculture, because agriculture is related to use of livestock, and livestock themselves emit some of these greenhouse gases like methane. Also, also crops such as paddy are an emitter of greenhouse gases. But what is critical in this entire change in the human system or the anthropogenic processes is basically emission of greenhouse gases from the energy sector, which is responsible for 72% of the global warming. And then there are other sources such as industrial processes, agriculture, waste, and land use change, which form a smaller component of these emissions. Now, when it comes to heat in particular, and when it comes to energy in particular, the most important or the biggest source is basically use of electricity and heat from the energy sources that we are tapping, and then followed by other sectors such as transportation, manufacturing, and fuel combustion. Which brings us to the critical part of global warming or the greenhouse gas emissions, which is the use of fossil fuels. Now, it's not that these fossil fuels have never been used in the past. They have been used. And if you see the data, from 1850 onwards, we have records of the use of these fossil fuels. But then, you will also see that between 1850 and 1950, the slope of the use of these fossil fuels is not as significant as the slope from 1950 to 2019. That means from 1950 onwards, our use or the dependence of these fossil fuels has increased by leaps and bounds. And that is pumping all the greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Now, I have been using the terms greenhouse gases, global warming very loosely so far. It is more from the purpose of giving you just an overall understanding of what is happening. Now I'm going to go into the technical part of it, the science of it. And since most of you are engineers or scientists here, you would be very much interested in understanding what is really happening. Because I've been telling about numbers. Now let's look at our planet Earth. And it looks quite beautiful in this picture. And what we also see is that our planet Earth receives solar radiation in the form of short-wave radiation from the sun. And this particular radiation behaves in different ways because Earth is itself not something very uniform. It has layers above it. It has an atmosphere above it. And that particular atmosphere is responsible for basically scattering of some of the radiation and absorption of some of the radiation. So what is coming from the sun is either absorbed into our planet, or it is directly emitted back to the space. Now, when the radiation is absorbed within the Earth system, it heats our planet, it heats our land, it heats our oceans. Now, once the oceans and the land that gets heated, it again emits some of the radiation back into the atmosphere. Now, that particular radiation is emitted in form of infrared radiation or the long wave radiation. And this particular radiation is responsible for warming of the planet. Now, what has happened over the years, and I can use the term that since 1850 up till now, we have been seeing an increase in these greenhouse gas emissions. So this actually means that the amount of heat which is getting trapped into our planet or into the atmosphere is also getting increased because of the higher emissions. And this increase in heat is actually leading to global warming, which means the average temperature of our planet is increasing slowly and steadily. Now, an interesting and very curious observation is that we would have not been alive if there were no greenhouse gas gases into the atmosphere, because the Earth's temperature would have been in that case minus 80 degrees Celsius. However, because of these greenhouse gases, the Earth's temperature on average is around 15 degrees Celsius, which has made this planet habitable for us. And now we are experiencing so much of these greenhouse gases that it is again making the planet inhabitable for us because of the extreme heat. Now, most of this extreme heat is trapped basically into the oceans, which form the largest part of the planet, because the land mass is only limited and the oceans are vast. Everywhere that you see over this planet, it is oceans, and these are trapping most of the heat. And what do we see when it comes to the ocean temperature? Well, it is also rising, and it is rising significantly. The year 2000 or the years just prior to that are a great indication where we are shifting. We are shifting to much more warmer oceans right now. And this is not going to stop, because 2020 might be one of the hottest years that we have seen. So what is happening with the oceans now, and what is happening into the atmosphere? Now, as the temperature of the atmosphere is rising, and as the heat in the oceans is also increasing, we see more evaporation of water vapor into the sky. And what does this lead to? This leads to basically an increase in moisture holding capacity of the air due to the higher temperature, as well as more water released from the oceans. So the same air that was holding, say for example, 10 kilos of moisture over a certain density in 50 years back, that same air is holding much more moisture into it now. And what that moisture does is that increases the humidity into of the atmosphere, and that also acts as greenhouse gas. So basically, when we increase the greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, there is more moisture into the atmosphere, and that moisture itself acts as greenhouse gas, increasing the temperature further, which is called as the feedback loop. So with each 1 degree rise in the atmospheric temperature, the moisture holding capacity of the air increases by 7%. And with every passing year, we have more moisture available in the atmosphere. Now, so far, I have tried to lay the foundation of basically what this climate crisis actually means and how is it changing the atmospheric conditions. Now, the next part of the presentation is basically to link this climate crisis with the water crisis that we are seeing, and that crisis relates to the crisis across the globe as well as in India. So most of you are civil engineers or water resources engineers, and you must have come across the hydrological cycle, where basically water is evaporated from the oceans and the water surface that goes into the atmosphere, and from the atmosphere it comes back as precipitation back to the land and to the seas. And that basically regulates the hydrological cycle. Now, what is happening with the climate change is that this entire hydrological cycle is changing. And how is it changing? Well, One of the prime example is basically the cyclonic events or the hurricane events or the typhoon events that we are witnessing these days. Now, the term cyclones, typhoons, hurricanes, these can be interchangeably used. The only difference between all these terms is basically the origin of the ocean. So if they start in basically the Atlantic, then they are termed as hurricane, and so on and so forth. What you may be curious to understand is that these events, these cyclonic events, and one of the example is Hurricane Harvey, these are becoming much more destructive now because of the warmer climate and more water available in the atmosphere. So this was an example of the United States, that the rainfall that accompanied these cyclones was of the order of 1 in 25,000 year event. Now, what does that 1 in 25,000 year event mean? So, for example, every monsoon season we witness rainfalls, but there are only very few days that we witness extreme rainfall, and those rainfall events are witnessed, say for example, once in 100 year or once in 200 year that we witness such events. Now, the moment we see, say, 1 in 25,000 year event, it means this event has happened only once in the last 25,000 years. That is the level of destruction and the intensity of that event. And that is what we are seeing. Not just that, we are seeing certain events of the intensity of 1 in 5 lakh years. And that is basically the geological time scales. We are not even talking about the anthropogenic time scales. And this is what we are seeing. The pictures all across the world are giving us the same understanding, that we are in the middle of a crisis. And this crisis is going to get bigger every passing day. And such events are going to become much more common. And we might become insensitive in the future, which is why the youth of the Indian society will play a critical role. And look at this super cyclone event that we had just recently witnessed in India, along the eastern coast as well as in parts of Bangladesh. Amphan has completely destroyed the ecosystems in West Bengal. We have even heard that, the mangroves, which play a critical role in acting as a resilient barrier against these cyclonic events, have been completely destroyed. And it is leading to destruction of livelihoods. That is not at all the only thing which is happening. What the increase in global warming is also leading to is basically increase in the sea level, and that is basically leading to reduction in the land that is available to us, especially along the coastal areas, because it is getting inundated every day in one part of the world or the other, and leading to migration of people. And all these events are becoming more frequent as and when we get more data, we see the changes. And we see these events are becoming 4 times, 5 times, 10 times more common these days. Look at the precipitation anomalies that we are seeing. And these anomalies are indicative of number of extreme precipitation events that we are witnessing every year. And we have data. We have data from the last 76 years, which is showing how these number of events are increasing. And now, how does it affect water as a whole, as well as water as different parts of it? Now, there are 2 elements to it. One is the supply, another is the demand. Now, the supply element is basically changed or influenced by the melting of ice, the rise in the sea level, the rise in the seawater levels, the increased frequency of droughts, which are influenced by extremely warmer days, and the increase in runoff from inland through precipitation and other such events. And then comes the second part, which is the demand. And that demand is changing in all sectors, including industries, domestic, agriculture, as well as demand for energy. So we need more of water. But what we are getting is, we are getting inconsistent supply of water, and which is variable across the planet Earth, and which is leading to so many issues. So let's look at the big picture of water, that who uses most of the water. And it is agriculture. It is not the domestic users or the industry users. It is agriculture which takes up most of the water in the world. And that is 70%. And then comes the industries as well as domestic users. Now, how does agriculture play such a critical role in the water cycle? The most important thing that we need to understand is when we use water for agriculture, water is basically accumulated over the land, and that accumulated water evaporates back to the atmosphere, which forms the major portion of water lost from our inland portions into the atmosphere. While industries and domestic users do not play such a critical role. But then we must understand that when we talk of agriculture, this is the sector that is giving us food, that is giving us the nourishment to survive. So we cannot be so hard on agriculture. Yet we have to understand what is wrong with it, and with the industries, and with the water that we are using. So as temperature increases, our water use increases as well. Because I can personally say about myself, I get more thirstier, and I need more bottles of water. I also need more more cooling systems to have colder ambient temperatures. And we need more water for the crops as well, because if more water is getting evaporated, more water needs to be put back to the crops so that they can grow. And the industries also need more water because it is getting hotter, because the technologies are advanced, because the industries are also expanding. And then we have animals. We have an entire chain of animal agriculture, which uses water for its own nourishment, from whom we derive the food, even though not ethically. So almost 40% of the world's population is affected by the water crisis. And they are affected in many different ways. Look at this plot, which shows the increasing water demand for different sectors, including agriculture, industry, as well as municipal and domestic, across the world in different regions. And this increase in demand is only to get worse, not better, with each passing day. So far we have been talking about the water crisis. Now let us try to understand where all do we have water available from. Well, we have it in the ice or snowpacks, in the glaciers. We have it in the groundwater aquifers. So wherever we are sitting, below us lies a major source of water, which has been tapped in the last 100 years like nothing else. Then we have the lakes and rivers, which once used to be beautiful, but not anymore, and not even they have adequate water available. Then we have some of the man-made reservoirs, which through the water harvesting structures or other structures for supply of water that we have developed. And then we have the forests, which are themselves an incredible source of water through evaporation and through soil moisture. And all these sources are getting affected by the climate change. No one is left alone. It's like a great leveler that it is going to basically destruct everyone in its path. But what is also critical for us to understand is the impact could be much, much more bigger on the vulnerable sections of our society who are poorer than us or who have lesser resources available. Now, what is happening with our glaciers? Does it even look like a glacier in the Himalayas? To me, it seems like any water body. And this is all because of the rising temperatures which are melting these glaciers. Not just in the Himalayas. It's everywhere. Places like Argentina, places like the Arctic, places like the Antarctic. Every place is, all the glaciers are basically losing water. Look at this beautiful picture. This was once the scene in 1928 of the Uppsala Glacier in Argentina. And look at 2014. It seems something like the lake in Ladakh or the Leh Ladakh. And this is the destruction we are causing through climate change. And what about the aquifers? Well, India is no stranger to groundwater stress or the loss of water in our groundwater aquifers. We are losing it significantly, not just in India, across the world. Africa, look at North America, look at parts of China, Russia, everywhere we are losing the aquifers. Australia, who is safe? Nobody, no country. And not just the aquifers, look at our surface water sources. The lakes, the reservoirs, they are all drying. What do we see now? It seems like a grassland or just a patch of land, nothing else. And this is a scene in this is a scene in around Niger. And then we see what is happening in Iran. Lake Urmia is drying. This is again a visualization of the water cycle. We are losing water from the oceans as well as the land. It is getting evaporated and then it is coming back to us either as extreme downpours or it is not even coming back to us. So what is that leading to? It is leading to droughts in some places, floods in other places. Look at the situation in Europe. These red areas are witnessing extreme level of groundwater stress. And then closer home, we know what happened last year in Chennai. We almost hit the day zero. There was no water available in Chamberakam Lake in Chennai. Look what we have done to this planet, to our own people. And this all started with the Cape Town crisis, where we first heard of the term day zero. I was not aware of the term day zero, and to me it just sounded so strange and so hard-hitting that a city can run out of water. Because earlier I used to think that there is water all around us. There is water in the atmosphere in terms of the moisture. There is water in the groundwater aquifers. There is water in the Himalayan rivers. There is water in the lakes. Everywhere there is water. And then we didn't have water in this city one fine day in 2018. Also in places like Zimbabwe, these are witnessing extreme level of droughts. Crops are failing. Our human systems are failing. Our food supplies, energy supplies, everything is going into a tailspin now. Now, a lot of you might be reading about the political situation in Syria. But has anyone of you ever heard that That political situation in Syria might be because of the climate crisis, which has caused droughts in large parts of Syria, which has eventually led to the migration of people from one part to the another, leading to overcrowding of cities. And then what is happening in the North Pole? North Pole used to be once an area with so many glaciers and so vast glaciers. These glaciers are receding. Many of you would have seen the picture of a polar bear in the middle of a glacier, and that polar bear is now looking for his food because that polar bear is not able to adapt now because of the changing climatic conditions, the extreme warming around these glaciers, and it is releasing water from the glaciers into the oceans. Same is happening in the South Pole. We are losing our glaciers, and we are getting all that water in form of sea level rise and in form of basically the dangers to the people who are living around the coastal areas. All the major cities in this world are prone to sea level rise, and they are going to see an extreme level of destruction with each year that we are going to see. Look at these top 10 cities who are at risk of sea level rise. Kolkata, Mumbai, Dhaka, these are all near us. So what are we doing right now? Where are these people going to live? Because if the land is going to get inundated, we will have shortage of land and resources, and people are going to move from one part of the country to the another. And there will be destruction, not just in form of the economics, but also in form of the people, in form of the damages to the ecosystem. So again, I'm assuming that most of you are civil and environmental engineers or water resources engineers, and you might be wondering, where does climate change affect us? I'm also a civil engineer, and I see that climate change is affecting everything that I'm doing right now, or everything that you will do in future. Whatever dams that you are going to design, or the flood barriers that you are going to design, or the drainage systems, the sewerage lines, the roads, the train networks, the airport runways, the building foundations, the power plants, the aqueducts, the drinking water systems, the bridges, the pipelines, the communication network, all the agricultural practices that we are going to implement, everything is going to get impacted by climate change. But then all is not doom and gloom. We are all engineers or scientists, and we can look into the future because we have data. And we can use the science to also modify the designs of these systems that we are creating. And this is where lies an opportunity for us to build a society which is resistant, which is resilient to climate change, which is resilient to the extreme events. And this takes me to the third part, which is how can we solve this crisis? Now, solving the climate crisis is itself a vast field. It's a huge field. And there are all kind of specialists, civil societies, scientists who are related to it, and the governments who are acting on it. So I'm going to just cover a very small part of it, just to give you an overview of where do you lie, what can you do, how you can change this world. And that is what Gandhi used to say. So let's take a look back from where we started. After we were hunters and gatherers, we had an agricultural revolution, which led to widespread farming and basically availability of crops and food to almost everyone. And then this was followed by the Industrial Revolution, where science and technology took over, and we talked about productivity. But then we also caused insane level of damages to our planet ecosystem at that time. And then we moved into a digital revolution. You started using computers, smartphones, and other forms of technology, sitting at home. And now, with the kind of experience that we have gathered from the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and the digital revolution, we are staring at the fourth stage, which is the sustainability revolution, which is asking us to reshape our economy, to reshape our systems, to live in this world in harmony with the nature. And how can we do that? Well, we are not at a zero position right now. We have taken some steps, and the first step was the Paris Agreement, where every nation agreed to basically reduce its emissions as well as move towards cleaner fuel. And India has been one of the leaders when it comes to going towards cleaner fuels. You will see around in different parts. I think most of you are located in Bangalore right now. You will see around you. You will see so many of windmills around you. You will see solar farms around you. So we have started tapping the green energy. But then you will still ask me, what can I do? And I believe, just like Mr. Al Gore, who is the former Vice President of the United States, believes that we can do everything. We can use our voice, we can use our vote, we can use our choices, and we can use our skills to basically design solutions which are climate resilient, to share our knowledge with others, to develop capacity around us, to train people around us, to bring lifestyle choices. And this is something that I have been able to do because I have also thought about it that, climate crisis is not something which cannot be solved. If each of us takes a pledge, and this is a pledge I took some 7 years back, that I'm going to turn vegan. I'm not going to, go after cars. I'm not going to go after that material way of life, which just causes destruction. It doesn't mean that I'm not materialistic. It just means that I have started thinking about my own footprint and how I can bring that change. You can also bring that same change, and you can also conserve the nature. How many lakes in Bangalore have run dry in the last 10-15 years? So many of these lakes. And then we can also practice sustainable agriculture, and agriculture practice which is in synchronization with the nature, where we use less fertilizers, we are more organic, and we plant more native trees. So now, coming back to the wise old man, he used to say that we can be the change that we want to see in this world. I'm trying my bit. Are you? Or can you? Or will you? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was a very informative session, and you've definitely shed a lot of light on the pressing issue which you're facing every day, but we are just not able to see it. So thank you. And so we'll have a short Q&A session now, sir. And due to the shortage of time, we have picked the best 3 questions, and I'll read it out now, sir.
Yes, please.
So the first question is, how can we contribute to urban water management as students?
Wow, what a brilliant question. Wow. So is that question asked by one of your classmates?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So I think there are multiple facets to the urban water system. I would say there are. Let's break it into 2 particular aspects. One is the demand, and another is the supply. So the demand aspect is that the amount of water that we are using, I think we need to basically become more efficient with that. And how can we become more efficient with that? We need to start evaluating that are we using the right amount of water? Are we conserving it? Are we managing it properly? Are we basically having the right wastewater management systems in place that can basically lead to the reuse of this water that we are using? And then the second form is the supply. Can we design systems where the losses are minimum? Because as much as I understand, we are losing around 50 to 60% of water during the water supply. So these are just two overall aspects that when you as an engineer or as a civilian think about it, think about the every drop of water that you are using. Think whether that water is being monitored. Think that is someone trying to understand that is there a way to demonstrate that we can actually reduce the use of that water, and then when you are designing it, use that data to actually design your systems. And this is where I think you as civil and water resources engineers will play a critical role, as you are the future of this country.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And the second question is, what are the differences between rural and urban water demand? So,
yeah, interesting. Another fascinating question. So, when it comes to water demand, let us first look at the sectors that need water. Basically, who all need water? Our crops need water. That means our farmers actually need water. Then people like us who are living at homes, we need water. We need water for our daily use, daily domestic use. And then all the industries around us need water. Now, in terms of the sectors, these sectors are common both in the urban areas as well as the rural areas. However, the usage pattern of water changes dramatically when we look at the rural areas and the urban areas. In the rural areas, you will see more agricultural land. You will see more groundwater irrigation in those areas, more flood irrigation. You will see so many patches of rice, paddy, or different crops which are using water either through the rainfall or through irrigation. While in the urban areas, we see a lot of wastage of water, a lot of supply of water to the buildings, to the industries, to almost every stakeholder. So I think in terms of basically the demand, the rural demand of the difference between the demand of water, the demand can be differentiated based on the sector which is using it. In terms of our use of water, I would say that we in the urban areas are using more water compared to people in the rural areas when it comes to the domestic use. And that is also causing, issues in the access to water in so many parts of India, so many rural parts of India.
okay, thank you, sir. And the final question is, what should be one's educational credentials in order to contribute something towards climate change mitigation and addressing water crisis, or to work in a field related to this?
Wow, another fantastic question. I'm so impressed by all of you, the way you are thinking. I think you are thinking in the right direction. So there is not one way you can contribute, but I can very simply say that wherever you are at the moment, if you are a civil and water resource engineer, you can do almost everything. You can design the world in the way you want, which can be nature friendly, which can be resilient to the extreme climatic events. I think one of the example is, so when you design building, there is a wind load that you consider. Now think about climate change. What the climate change is doing is extreme wind speeds are going to change. So think about your design, that the numbers that you're considering in designing, are those numbers taking into account the climate change? If yes, then you are in the right direction. Look at the solutions that you are proposing. Are those solutions green? Do they have less emissions? Is the design of those solutions better for the environment? Is the nature involved in the design of those solutions? Can the lakes, can the water bodies around us be preserved? So you can use the science that you have, which is the most powerful tool, and you have the voice. You can vote. You can talk to the civil society people. You can discuss. You can talk to your classmates. You can talk to your families. I think the best way is to spread the idea, and that that is a great way to do something about it. I hope I have answered that question, Rishika.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You definitely have answered everything in very, very detail. Do you have any final words for students, sir?
I think what I can say based on my experience that it was the year 2009 when I first came across the concept of climate change, because I didn't know before that. And right now when I see myself in the year 2020, I'm actually earning my livelihood because of the climate crisis. So that means that climate crisis is also an opportunity for us to develop more green jobs, to turn our economy into a green economy where we are able to earn through the change that we are bringing for the planet, the improvement that we are going to do on this planet. And you people can do it through all ways, through your engineering skills, through your entrepreneurial skills, through all kinds of skills that you have. I think that is it.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for your session. It was a really great session, sir.
And thank you to everyone. Yeah. Thank you to everyone for organizing this session.
Yeah. Now I'd like to introduce the next speaker of today, Mr. Pratap Raju. So, Mr. Pratap Raju is the founding partner of the Climate Collective, which is a network of like-minded organizations building local ecosystems for climate entrepreneurship. And he's also the country head for New Energy Nexus. He has an MSc in Economic Development from the University of Oxford, and he's a graduate of Harvard University with Applied Maths and Economics as his major. Mr. Pratap is also the director at Climate Angels, which brings together early-stage investors and startups through networking events and technical support. We welcome you, sir. Sir, am I audible? You're not audible, sir. I think there's an issue. We can't hear you, sir. No, sir. Yeah, you're still not audible. Maybe you can rejoin the session, sir. So Sorry for the delay, guys. We'll be starting very soon. Please be here.
Hi, is this better?
Yes, sir. You're audible now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry for that. Great.
Right.
Well, thank you. Thank you for you all to inviting me on this webinar. I'm very excited always to talk to people who are interested in what's happening with climate change, and in particular, my area is focusing on what are the opportunities to be an entrepreneur that could be positive in supporting not just this fight against climate change, but all our environmental problems. So my background, maybe to share, I started off as a banker in power and gas. Funding all the bad guys. That's what all the coal and oil guys. This was 25 years ago. But I left after about 5 years. I got a master's in development because I wanted to focus on development, and I moved to India then, 20 years back. And I didn't know what to do, so I was in Bombay, so I became a film producer, mainly because I like films. And so I did that for about 7 years, couple of films, lots of ad films. And in 2008-9, I started a solar wind business, and this was the beginning of the solar boom in India, and also the wind boom, at least as not for tax reasons, but as a real business, IPP business. So we commissioned and developed 84 megawatts of solar and wind between 2009 and 2016. That was about, give you an idea, that's about 600, 700 crore of projects. So it was great. It was a good experience for me. 2016, the Adanis, SoftBank, big guys came in and kicked us all out, so we couldn't win in that business anymore. But I did learn a lot about what it means to do things like solar and wind, which we talk about freely today, but 10 years ago, it was a novelty. So today, solar and wind prices are well below the grid. Today, solar and wind prices are well below price of coal, power from coal. And people want it because it makes a lot of business sense. 10 years ago, we had to rely on government subsidies, and that's not sustainable. So what I started to do in 2014-15 is to help support upcoming entrepreneurs who have clean tech startups. That's in energy, mobility, waste, carbon credits, anything that's positive for environment, but relies on business value being created, so they're sustainable, not based on grants. So I can share with you some stuff of what we've seen in India. Since about 2017, in one program called Climate Launchpad, we've had 350 startups, or over almost 350 startups who joined our accelerators in clean tech in India. 350, right? This is a shocking number. I'll give you another statistic that I just recently came across last week from PwC. 6% of all venture capital goes to clean tech startups in the world. 6% means it's one of the big sectors in the world in venture. Now, if I told you, and if I told the average person, not just here and students, but also industry or government, that climate startups is one of the biggest sectors receiving funds globally, right? It would be a shocker. When we think about climate change and as someone doing a startup or a business, we're thinking what? CSR, foundations, help the environment. I know it's expensive, but help the environment. In fact, we're seeing the opposite. we're seeing startups that are not only positive for environment, but right, without subsidies, etc. I saw another number last week. I can't remember offhand, but I think around 32 to 40 unicorns are in climate change, startup unicorns, right? Again, a shocking number. I mean, you may have heard of Impossible Burger, that plant-based burger that McDonald's carries now, right? Of course, you would have heard of Tesla, which started off as a startup, just like the startups we have here today in Bangalore or in Hyderabad, working on EVs. You know, a small team of engineers putting together a solution that could change an industry. That's what Tesla was like, I don't know, I think 14, 15 years ago. In fact, I am also the country head for a group called New Energy Nexus, which has been around in investing in clean tech startups for 15 years. They were one of the early investors in Tesla. You know, like I don't remember, 2008 or something. I wish they didn't sell the stake, otherwise we'd be fully funded for the next 50 years. But they did sell it early. I guess what I'm trying to tell you is two things. One, there is a boom in clean tech startups in India. I mean, wherever I go, you may not be a clean tech accelerator or a clean tech incubator or a clean tech venture fund, but you are supporting clean tech, whether it's in waste, whether it's in EVs, etc. So it's much bigger in India than we realize, and we have a natural advantage, right? We have a lot of applied engineering, applied science kind of graduates, technical entrepreneurs. We have tons of environmental problems, right? And that's the fertile ground in which great ideas come from. Let me solve the problem I see in front of me. And increasingly, although it's still slow and it's still not enough, we're getting more and more funding to support startups. In one area, I saw a report recently for electric vehicles, right? There are 157, perhaps more, angel investors for EVs. That's a big number. You know, across, we're seeing more and more waste funds being set up, especially Series A funds. You know, P&G, Procter & Gamble, announced a 200 crore India fund for waste startups, right? This is a time for those. There are many ways to support this fight against climate change, and Tushar did a great job of sharing both the problems and some of the opportunities that are coming out of it, for sure. But this is a great time to consider climate tech, the growing sector of climate tech, to both do something positive, of course, for the environment, but at the same time, start a business. In this case, a startup business or a technology business. I'm going to share my screen just to show some of these startups in our portfolio. Let me just hit my share button. Okay. Let's see. Rakshita, can you just confirm, can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, sir. It was visible for a second there, and yeah, it's visible now. Yep.
It says how to save the planet, right? Yeah. Is the full screen visible?
No, it's still loading, sir. Yeah, now it's visible.
Okay. Okay, great. That's the title, right? How to Save the Planet?
Yeah.
All right. This is talk I gave actually a few months ago. The funny thing about climate change, and Tushar will agree, is this is something that is sometimes comedic or even tragic, because it's sometimes the same thing we speak about. The problems that we face are not new. And to some degree, the opportunities that we have are also not new. The only difference is today, the enabling support, for example, in my area, startups, is much easier than it was 5 years ago. Right. Now, we do know, of course, that EVs are coming, and they seem to be coming super fast for many reasons. As battery costs come down, I think I saw some recent Goldman Sachs reports about 25% of all new sales for automobiles coming from EVs in a short order. Maybe it's 2025. India may take more time or less. We'll see. Well, I do know that my experience in the clean tech space in India is that we're always a little behind, but once we move super fast, especially when the business value is demonstrated. So we have tons of startups like Nikola Motors who are retrofitting existing vehicles, especially like use cases like three-wheelers, rickshaws, selling to rickshaw owners. Of course, 30,000 rupees is not that cheap, and we do need more solutions to become more sophisticated, like financing solutions, to make this easier for adoption. But the movement is in the right direction. And of course, anything that reduces our dependence on oil or diesel is positive, even though our grid is not that clean. It's powered often by coal. The renewables are, since I think the last 10 years, roughly 3/4, and now I think above 90% of every new utility scale power plant in India is from renewable source. And that's pretty consistent across the world. So our grid is increasingly becoming green as well. Many other kinds of solutions. Clean tech is such a wide space. We have some of the waste that comes, the ash that comes from thermal plants. This team, I think, out of Gujarat, who's converting waste into ceramics. Feedstock for ceramic manufacturers. And this is something we're seeing not just from waste products like fly ash, but also from, for example, this year we had a couple of carbon capture technologies, sucking in CO2 from the atmosphere and using the same to create tiles, right? So lots of ingenuity happening from especially either waste or converting into useful products. And making, of course, we can use with ceramics. I'll give you a couple of examples. Are pretty straightforward. Okay, let's replace oil. Let's go to an EV startup. Let's take care of this waste product, fly ash, and let's convert it to a product. And there is unlimited opportunities for these use cases across our economy and our country. Sometimes it requires a little ingenuity. Now, there's a startup that I think they may be based in Banaras. They saw that these temple flowers that are offered, of course, at the temples after use are thrown into the Ganga, right? Pollution. Of course, it has an impact on marine life. It's polluting the river downstream. It's a problem that how do we solve? So this startup called Brook and Blooms converted these flowers into fertilizer. Pretty straightforward, a waste product into fertilizer. Then they looked to sell this fertilizer to farmers. They ran into a problem, right? Farmers don't pay much money in our country or in most countries for fertilizer, and you have to compete against the big giants who have skill that the Brook and Blooms doesn't have. It's a startup. So they they joined our program. They thought about sort of what they had as a product. And it wasn't fertilizer that they had. Right, they had devotion. They bottled devotion, or their packaged holiness into a package. So they targeted. Do I have this? Oh, so they started targeting upper middle class Delhi households who had terrace gardens. And if you're a household and you have the money and you want to buy fertilizer, and you're buying these fertilizers that come from Banaras, from temples, from the devotional flowers. You are buying what? Not just the fertilizer, but the association with Banaras, but in this case with maybe Hinduism, your religion. You're also buying, perhaps to some others, this idea of sustainability. And when they worked out the numbers, the price they could sell to upper middle class terrace garden owners in Delhi led to a 5 times profit rate than selling to your standard farmer who buys fertilizer. So they've created or refined their business model into a much more powerful and profitable startup. The benefit, more flour that's thrown into Ganga is reused into something positive. right? So there is a lot of innovation, and there's thousands of these ideas around the world and in India as well, right? So they converted their product. This is a structure we call a deal in our program. Just to make very clear what we sell. Now, sometimes clean tech looks like an easy solution. How to solve the problem. We need capital, so we build a lot of solar plants, right? Now the scale led to lower costs, and people started buying the power. And we have, I think, last I recall, 35,000 megawatts of solar installed in the country. When I joined in 2009, there was 1 megawatt in the country, right? Great, right? Now we have the hard stuff, right? I'm not saying that was an easy path. It was not easy. It was not foreordained, but the hard stuff. How do I stop people from buying fast fashion? Right. I don't have the numbers in India, but I saw a study, I think in the UK, where a significant portion of clothing, is bought and used once before thrown in a landfill. Right. That is not capital that's needed. Right. That needs some change in social values, community values, and innovation. And this is where we're going to see, I believe, a lot more technology-based, business model-based solutions coming out to support sustainability. Here's an example of a startup that joined last year out of India called Eco Karma. Now, one thing that they realized about sustainability is to increase people's attitudes. There is a social angle. None of us are hardly sustainable in isolation. I mean, there's a bad joke. I don't know if I should say it. Okay. How do you tell if someone is vegan? I'll give you the non-X-rated version, but how do you tell if someone is vegan? They'll tell you they are. If you ever met a vegan, it comes up in a conversation very fast. Sustainability is very similar. So what Eco Karma has done is looked at harnessing those social cues when people do positive things for the environment, harnessing those social cues on social media to get others to adopt those same behaviors. And the reward system is from eco-friendly products who support more sharing on social media. This is not the same as how do I get more capital to build a solar plant. They're both challenges, but this requires a lot more understanding of us as humans, as consumers, our values, etc. They're in early stages here in India, so I do think that I do wish them luck as well. I do, and I think this touches on also some of the stuff that Tushar was talking about earlier. There are tons of problems, but they also scream out for solutions, right? And sometimes I don't see it so much in the young. I do see it generally in society. There's this feeling of hopelessness that nothing we can do. But I've been privileged to work across South Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa, and I meet hundreds, and as a trainer, I meet hundreds and hundreds of startups who just don't take that approach and building things on the ground as startups, and solving our problems and making it sustainable. And I just want to end with a nice quote, which I love. Maybe this is what's going to happen to climate change. I don't know. But this is an old quote from an old U.S. president. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a great presentation.
Great.
Let's move to the question and answer session, sir. So we have quite a number of questions. So here, what kind of startup do you think is ideal that can be great in both renewable energy and environmental and engineering technology?
Right. Okay. I mean, environmental engineering technology is such a wide scope, for sure. So maybe I'm going to ask for. I'm going to tackle it from a different angle. There's when you think about startups, there's no right way, right or wrong way, better way. if you are technically, you have a technical background, that does give you advantages in the market. You know, when I was a solar developer, I thought, wow, if I learn this, it's going to be hard. Others are going to find it hard if we move first. And we were one of the first ones in the country doing utility scale. So great, right? We're going to build on it. And there were 22, I think, developers in 2010 when we won our first big tender. I think that number mushroomed to 500 by 2012. And I was thinking, wait, where's my defense as a business? You know, I thought, you know, all of a sudden prices are falling because everyone is doing solar. So one lesson I learned is really thinking about, especially as a business or a startup focused on technology, what is defensible, and oftentimes that is something related to R&D, something that you can develop that others don't, and you can patent it. So to answer your question, I mean, if someone may say solar, and you have examples of Renew Energy, right, which is our largest IPP solar, although I think they're more of a finance company than a solar company, doing well. At the same time, Impossible Burger, right? That's a food technologist doing that. In fact, yesterday I was in a pitch session where somebody is creating sushi, printing sushi using from plants using 3D printing. I don't think it's good or bad either or. I think you should just make sure to leverage your strengths. And in my own experience as an entrepreneur for 20 years is that you should focus on things that you like. Right? There's nothing easy in this world, even for those that look. I come across so many people who always chuckle when they're praised for the success that they have. How little everyone else around them who come across them realize how difficult the journey has been. So picking things that you like, picking things that you are good at, hopefully they coincide, is a better way to go at this than listing a technology.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And we have another question. So renewable energy is clean, green, and sustainable. But how clean, green, and sustainable is it to manufacture the units that harness it, like windmills, PV cells, etc.?
Right. So that's a good question too, and this is not a unheard of question. In fact, anything we do has an impact on the environment. So that's clear. Now, I think it depends on what axis you're talking about, but at least let's say from an energy point of view, I think the payback, if that I could use the term, for the lost energy or lost increase in, let's say, CO2 emissions that come from manufacturing panels versus the gain from using it versus replacing a dirty fuel is on the order of 6 months or something like that. So there is a loss from manufacturing something in many ways, not just CO2. There's water usage, etc. But there's an old rule, something like perfection is the enemy of the good. Right? Our goal is not to be pure. Our goal is to be effective, and I think generally renewable does a good job of that with these very fast paybacks on lost, let's say, CO2 emissions.
Yes, sir. And we have another one.
Yeah.
So why aren't the vegan-based meat companies like Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat being introduced in the Indian markets, considering the fact that Indian meat-eating population is very high, and introducing these might significantly reduce the carbon emission as well as water consumption?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. You would think that we would be a great audience for that. This is a general question I always hear about any one startup idea. Why isn't someone doing it already? This is kind of related to that, although you're talking about different markets, not the idea itself. And maybe it requires someone to do it, right? So, I mean, it's not easy as we take for granted the idea of companies going across the world and conquering markets. But whenever we deal with that, we're talking about MNCs. Some of these MNCs are 100 years old. It's straightforward for them. When you're a startup and let's say you're 10 years old, and let's say you're in the U.S. doing something, the idea of coming to India is not easy from a capital point of view. Systems management, stretching yourself out. Maybe they view the U.S. as I have another 10 years of growth here. There are many reasons why someone may not come to India. Now, going back to here, to another point about India, specifically what you're saying, I don't know. Maybe I saw there's funny dynamic. Every country is different. Why didn't the Nano take off? On paper, it looked great, right? Reduce costs. People going from motorcycles to their first car. That leap in terms of your costs is not that big. People didn't factor in stuff like the social values associated with going for the cheap car, right? Does it represent that change in status? And there was a problem that in that case Nano had. I think meat could play a similar role, as for example, meat consumption grows in a lot of countries, not all. There are certain countries, especially in Eastern Europe, it doesn't. But as income levels rise, right? We're a meat-eating country from many different points of view, but I don't know. That's simple. But maybe it requires entrepreneurs to do it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You've given us a great insight on the opportunities available in the sustainability and climate change sector. Thank you so much, sir. So
sure.
Now I request Aman to convey the vote of thanks. So Aman, take it forward, please.
Thank you. So my name is Aman. On behalf of ASCE Student Chapter and the Department of and I would also like to extend a special thanks to Mr. Pratap Raju and Dr. Tushar Agarwal for taking the time out from the busy schedule, giving us insight about it and also how can we turn the crisis into an opportunity. So thank you, sir. And also not to miss our principal, Dr. Subramania sir, and Dean and an HOD for constantly guiding us and encouraging us to organize these events. Thank you all. So now, if I may request all the panelists to just turn on their camera so that we can have a group photo. Sir and Yash, if you could just turn on the camera, it'd be great. Fine. Thank you, sir. I'll switch and forward the recording and meeting details to you. And also we'll forward a feedback form and you can also take it. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Pratap Raju.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all the members from the RVCE college. Thanks for the presentation.
Right, thank you. Thank you all.
Fantastic session.
Thank you, sir. Cheers.